Hello, my name is Deidre McIntyre. Welcome to another panel with Black Blockchain Summit. Today we have some guests with us to discuss forging new Web3 business strategies in uncertain regulatory times. And that's kind of a snazzy way of just saying that we're looking at this sector that was birthed by Bitcoin. And we want to know the state that we're at right now. Is it really improving lives in the business world or between businesses within the United States or outside? What are areas of improvement? It's really kind of an analytical view of what's happening. So what I would like to do without further hesitation is to introduce our panelists. First panelist is Marissa Curry. Please give us about a 2 or 3 minute introduction in terms of your biographical background.
Hi, my name is Marissa Curry. I am a senior at Bowie State University studying computer science. I've had the pleasure to work at like two Web3 companies, also do a lot of work with Solana University and lead the first HBCU Solana University event at my HBCU. I've always been passionate in the blockchain. I bought Bitcoin in 2020, and then I saw like the applications that it can be used to help others in my community. And I'm excited here today with you all.
Awesome. And our next guest is Olayinka. Please give a biographical sketch on yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olayinka Odenran. I'm the founder of Black Women Blockchain Council. I've been in this space since 2015, so I've seen a lot change. I'm all about providing education to our community and also providing resources they can tap into in order for us to build and not just be consumers of this tech, but be able to build and be able to reap the benefit that's out there for us and also change the way things are right now in this world and use blockchain as a solution for some of the pitfalls that pegs us.
Absolutely. Marissa, what is in terms of, your VC background, what is your view or your context? How would you define Web3 to someone who was, not really savvy about the sector, but you're looking at technology companies and stuff like that? So how would you actually define that for someone?
Okay, I would define Web3 as so there's like when people think of Web3, first it was like Web3 in the metaverse, but when we get deep into it, I would define Web3 mainly as the blockchain technology. And then so when I think about Web3, I think about the blockchain technology. I also think about DeFi and tokenization of assets. And recently I had the pleasure to intern at an asset management company, and that's when I learned that when I think that's really important that fintech and DeFi blend together harmoniously. And that's what I think about when I think about Web3. I think about it elevating current things like fintech, the supply chain, because you can put the supply chain on the blockchain, and making it better to get things done. Also, I'm sorry if I'm slow today. I was in the hospital yesterday. I had an asthma attack, so I'm not like that fast with it today.
You're perfectly fine. You're doing great, and I think it's important. I think the reason why I asked you that question is because we can engage into a conversation deeply about Web3 because you've been trained in the sector. Olayinka is a pioneer, especially in the Ethereum blockchain. I'm going to follow up with a question with Olayinka in a minute, but I think we have to be cognizant of our audience and people tuning in and just not having a clue. So I started with that kind of question just to kind of get people who may be new to the sector ramped up. But Olayinka, I want you to follow up on that, and because we're still dealing with the history of it. And I know you have vast experience with the Ethereum and other sectors. What should a new person know about Web3?
Well, I think it's everything that Marissa had mentioned. But one word that defines Web3 is about ownership and control. I guess that's two words that define Web3 is ownership and control. And you could take that and apply it to so many different industries and so many different sectors. But Web3 is using blockchains for our own benefit in order to gain that ownership and control of our data. And ultimately, that's what we want to see. We want to see people being able to move their data from different platforms and be able to retain that ownership of it and reap the benefit of having that amount of data, whether it's monetary value or just collecting, followers based on the information that you're providing about yourself and taking it to anywhere that you choose. So really, it's solidifying our ownership on our data, and data could be anything, as well as being able to control that information, because we know that ownership and then control really translates to power, and it also really translates to monetary value as well.
Thank you. Marissa, you being at the beginning stages of the interning in the sector, but you're also going to be, the entity, the future generation, or actually the now generation, because it does take people that long to ramp up anymore, or the person that's going to be giving funding to people. What message would you like to get across to people who might have like pie in the sky? Like, I want to do an international, global Web3 type venture, and Marissa, I want you to fund me. But you have an opportunity to talk generically to the office, saying, "Look, these are the things that you have to have in order, and these are the things you know before you even come to talk to me." So, talk to that imaginary person, and what advice would you give?
I think the first thing is to have a strong understanding of TradFi. I think that will serve anyone well if they want to receive any sort of funding. Also, would not use a lot of buzzwords. I know that it went from crypto to AI to crypto, and people identify grifters in the space because it seemed like very Ponzi scheme to some people, and that's not the essence of Web3 at all. So basically, having a strong understanding of TradFi, not using buzzwords, making sure you have a solid thesis.
What is that first thing that you mentioned? What is I don't even know what that is.
Traditional finance.
Traditional finance. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are the things that, people need to hear. Olenka, what do you see as the present, and, not talking about the future, but who's got it right? Who's doing something right that you say, hey, if you want a model to look at in this Web3 sector, even though regulations are not clear, I think they're on the right path, and maybe may help bridge that gap between the regulations to come and a sustainable business model.
I think there's a lot of companies or projects that are currently working on the ideal way of what Web3 is supposed to symbolize. I would definitely say that a company called Endowment, and they are for nonprofit organizations that allows nonprofits to be able to collect crypto as donations. I think that's a fantastic idea. It's giving nonprofits, especially most of the newer ones that don't get any notoriety, the ability to tap into the Web3 community and actually meet them where they are. You don't have to change your crypto to fiat. You can actually donate your crypto, and it would automatically do everything back in the back end. And that nonprofit organization, whether they're in the crypto or Web3 space or not, they're able to collect that crypto. I think another company that's doing something with blockchain is Patientory, and that's owned actually by the founder is a Black woman, and she's on the cusp of taking our data or our patient data or information and being able to translate it into the blockchain technology system so that we will be able to have our data anywhere we go. And it's truly ours. Because if you recall right now, you actually have to go to your doctor, go through a series of, process before you get to own your data or transfer that data to, whichever doctor of choice. Now that data will be at our fingertips. I think that's a great idea. So she's been working on that. Ethereum Foundation, I have to plug them because of the work that they're doing with Black Women Blockchain Council. I think that, they're on the forefront of really amplifying what Web3 should be, which is a global community, right? And they have a lot of people, within their ecosystem that's building and using this technology to actually touch so many different people in the world. So I think, when we start to think Web3, we don't just focus on the US or focus on just Africa. We think of it as a global community, which, and honestly, we're all humans, right? Even though there's aliens, but we're all humans. So we all should be thinking on this global level and eliminate that barrier or human-made construct that's been created.
Yeah, I checked in with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was like, I ain't buying it. So I'm going to go with Neil. The alien thing may just be some, bacteria. And, hopefully that doesn't wipe us out, because nowadays you never know. Marissa, same question to you. What is it that you see presently that you think people should look at that's working? I think you're on mute.
I think staking your assets, something that I want to get into. I've seen a lot of Medium articles about staking assets to build passive income. I think that's something that's very important. And then also organizations like the Blockchain Foundation and everything are helping fight the regulatory fight. And then also we've seen traditional finance companies start their own stable nets and build their own tokenization systems. So I think as long as we have more education, and people start to use it in their day-to-day life, it will become more accessible.
Fantastic. And back to you, Marissa. I had to put you on the spot. But, future, where you see in our society, it said, they're not even looking at blockchain, or they should be looking at blockchain, because this could be improved. This type of sector can be improved.
I see blockchain intertwined with AI. I have a friend who's currently working on building a model that trades, and that's using AI, but it's for blockchain. It's for cryptocurrency assets. So I feel it's going to be directly intertwined with AI. So I think it'll be important to understand mediums like machine learning, and then also blockchain technology and tokenization.
And the same question to you.
Yeah, definitely tokenization is number one. We already see TradeFi or traditional finance jumping into blockchain technology. Even before it became, to some degree, mainstream, they had already started patenting and trademarking a couple of things, back in 2017, et cetera. So they've already started jumping into this. But I do see it getting a lot more usage within universities. They're looking at identity management and transferring trips onto the blockchain. A lot of hospitals are also looking at it as well. I think with the hospital, things are going to be really slow moving, because there's a couple of, regulations that they have to jump over. I know a couple of projects that are actually looking at blockchain to be able to work on a few things that are happening right now. One of them is a research company that's actually looking at blockchain and organoids, and taking those organoids and including them as an NFT and connecting them to the patients, because organoids are one of those samples that they take. They can grow it in the lab, they can inject it, they can experiment on it, et cetera, et cetera. But because they become samples, they actually disassociate it from or unidentify it from the individual that they collected that information from. So now being able to tie that individual back to the organoids, and any breakthrough, any treatments or really great outcomes that happen with that organoids can now be traced back to that individual. So if someone has cancer and they find a cure for that particular cancer, guess what? That lineage or that individual can actually reap that benefit. It all stems from Henrietta Lacks, and making sure that they get that accolade, as well as the monetary, the rewards that come with finding that breakthrough, and not just letting the pharmaceutical companies or the research companies, keep the money. And then, in my field, cybersecurity as well, there's a lot of individuals that are looking at blockchain and incorporating AI, like Marissa mentioned. I think, this field or this space is just going to grow. We have CBDC coming out, in several different countries. Because of the inflation and what's going on a global scale, a lot of countries are actually leaving the US dollar and relying more on Bitcoin, right? So we see that, and that's something that you would never imagine 5 years ago. but here it is. It's happening now. So there's a lot more that's down the pike.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought up health because, this year we don't even have a clear health panel. And then that's been a behemoth since the very beginning, since 2018 when Black Blockchain Summit began. The health sector, with its HIPAA and its security problems. And I think one of the things that I think about, you're saying control your own health data. Once I hand it over, so let's say I have all my health data that's, a record that I can give someone a key to. If I'm handing it over to an agency that may be paying me because they're looking for, Black women of a certain age and living in the suburbs or something, they're looking for something demographic, how do I retrieve that? So I bet there's one company that paid for this, but then once they have it, how do I even know that they're not taking that and selling that off to someone else and continuing to make a profit? I think that's still a big, missing piece that, okay, once I sold it, and it brings up the Hollywood issue too, because that was what the contention was with with the strike with the actors about giving Hollywood studios, their AI representation to use in perpetuity. Once I gave it to you once, how do I know I don't randomly see myself or my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren see my replication long after I'm gone, and my heirs are not compensated for that? Marissa, another final question, because we're going to have to wrap up in a few seconds. Is there anything in the entertainment sector that you see coming down the pike that could be, because I think, and the reason why I bring up the entertainment sector is that we will stereotypically categorize the areas in which Black people are allowed to perform has been in sports and entertainment. So is there anything in that sector from a business perspective that you think people should be looking at? Because we have been the featured act, the featured performer, but not necessarily the person that was introducing the NFTs or et cetera. So anything that, because especially the reason why I'm asking this is a lot of students at Howard University and all the HBCUs are very centered around the sports and entertainment, but we want that business mind to also say, hey, there are areas here that can help athletes, actors, et cetera, monetize within the Web3 sector. So Marissa.
Yeah, I definitely think that's very important. And for the creator industry, like with influencers or anything, like having your own personal token or releasing your own line of NFTs, because when we're seeing now, like in the creator industry, especially with VC funding, it's not about it's about curation, because people want to be able to find very specific things. And if they can find that one creator who has like their own token or NFT, that's very helpful. And when I say curation, it's like, oh, what is the best scent if you like X, Y, and Z, and like this is your aesthetic. It's like very aesthetic and niche things, and that can apply to the blockchain with their own personal coin or things of that nature.
So Olayinka, final thoughts other than health, any other sector that you think that audience, from students to professionals should be looking at for that next niche of cross-border Web3?
Yeah, definitely. To speak about the question that you asked, Marissa, the student athletes now have the ability to use their name and likeness, right? And be able to make some money off of that now. Because of that, a lot of athletes are looking at NFTs as a way to retain ownership to their content. And some of them are actually using it as a way to make money so that they can, bet on themselves, really, right? Now they're able to create like a sports card of themselves, right? And collectors can be able to trace them as they go through their professional careers and be able to trade those cards. So, or have access to that athlete. So there's NFTs are being used when it comes to student athletes, and so many more ways that they can use it to reap benefit of it. I think for students, the other thing I mentioned transcripts earlier, and I can't stress how much of a headache it was, for me, trying to get my transcripts, because as soon as you get out of college, some jobs want to see those transcripts, right? And so, going to the schools and trying to collect that information, you have to fill out a form, you have to pay some money or whatever, going through that process and being able to eliminate that process and have access to that information and being able to share that information with anyone that you want, I think it's fantastic. And then being able to see your course lineup and the grades and share that readily accessible is also a great thing. I think the ability for students nowadays versus when we were growing up is so much more. The world is wide open to them. They have so many different technologies that have come out in the last 2 years, that they can tap into. And as Marissa mentioned earlier, with the combination and blockchain, kind of right now, the sky's the limit for these students. And they just have to know that, they jump in at any time, right? They don't have to come as an expert. You don't have to be a tech person to jump in to leave benefit. And the jobs are out there, both tech and non-technical people. So they could start looking now, they could start, considering shifting things around and start jumping into the opportunities that are out there for them.
Okay, I'm going to give the second to last word to Marissa and then the last word to Olayinka. Marissa, in 30 seconds, if someone wants to follow in your footsteps, because you're in the lead, what's some advice you give them to follow your path?
Be relentless, work hard, and absorb things, and ask people their favorite book. That's something that I found a lot of benefit of. Ask people their favorite book or book related to the subject they.
So, what's your favorite book, Marissa?
It's hard. The Art of Managing Oneself by Peter F. Drucker.
Thank you. Olayinka, advice that you would give and state your favorite book.
Be curious. Definitely be curious, and let curiosity lead you towards whatever lane and direction it wants to lead you towards. And also be willing to jump over fear. Because I think a lot of the times the fear of the unknown keeps us in stationary and doesn't move us forward. So be willing to just be fearful or fearless and just jump over it. It's okay to have some fear. And the book, I would say my book. I just wrote a book.
What?
Yes.
You just remembered, right?
Recipe. It's your
what was that again? What was
home
the title?
guide to your cybersecurity guide to your home and your business. It's basically going over some of these major cybersecurity breaches and issues that have happened to a lot of these companies like Comcast, as well as LinkedIn even, and many different companies, and just outlining what went wrong, what actually happened, and what we can do to safeguard or prevent certain things like that. And also breaks down, some of the things that you need to be aware of, like security awareness and things that you can do to improve your security landscape. So I would say that's my favorite book.
Give the title again. I believe I was. Go ahead.
No problem. It's called Catfish Recipe. It's a play on word of a catfish. Catfish Recipe, your cybersecurity guide to your home and your business.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank both of our panelists, Marissa Curry and Olayinka Odeniran. We could go on and on in this topic because there's so much we're just at the genesis, we're at the nascent point. I know this conference is going in its 6th year, but essentially we're still at the beginning, so it's not too late. And hopefully we can impart some wisdom to the viewers and get them on the right track to being builders in this space. So thanks again for joining us for this panel.